Last month, I discovered that someone I trusted most had stolen $2,000 from me in the cruelest way possible. What started as excitement for the concert of a lifetime turned into a nightmare that ended with handcuffs, courtrooms, and a family torn apart forever. This is how my own cousin betrayed me, and how Ticketmaster's investigation brought justice I never expected. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The notification popped up on my phone at exactly 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in March. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour had just announced additional dates, and Phoenix was one of them. I'd been waiting for this moment for months, refreshing Ticketmaster, obsessively, joining every pre-sale queue I could find. My hands were literally shaking as I clicked the link. I've been a Taylor Swift fan since I was 12 years old. Her music had carried me through high school heartbreaks, college stress, and the uncertainty of my early 20s. Now, at 24, working my first real job as a marketing coordinator in Phoenix, I finally had the money to buy decent seats. Not nosebleeds this time. Real seats where I could actually see her face. The Ticketmaster queue was brutal. I sat at my desk at work, laptop open, phone in hand, both devices running the waiting room. My coworker Jessica kept walking by, asking if I'd gotten through yet. The estimated wait time kept climbing. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, over. An hour. My lunch break came and went. I barely ate, too nervous to step away from my screens. Finally, at 2:17 p.m., I got through on my phone. My heart nearly exploded when I saw the seat map load. There they were, 2 tickets in section 104, row 12. Close enough to see everything. Far enough that they weren't completely insane money. Well, they were still insane money. $847 each after all the fees. Nearly $1,700 total. I stared at my bank account balance. I had $2,300 in savings. Money I'd been carefully putting aside for months, skipping nights out, making coffee at home, eating leftovers for lunch. This would wipe out most of it. But when would I get another chance like this? Taylor was 34. Who knew how many more tours she'd do? I bought them. Both tickets. The second one was for my cousin Madison, who'd been just as obsessed with Taylor as I was since we were kids. We'd grown up together in Tucson, just 2 hours south of Phoenix, and even though she'd moved to Los Angeles for college and stayed there for work, we'd always talked about going to a Taylor concert together someday. Madison was more than just my cousin. She was like the sister I never had. Our moms were twins, and we'd been raised almost like siblings, spending every summer together, sharing clothes, staying up late, talking about boys and dreams and music. When I got into Arizona State, she helped me move into my dorm. When she landed her marketing job at a startup in LA, I was the first person she called. The concert was still 4 months away, July 15th, but I was already planning everything. I'd booked a hotel room at the Renaissance downtown, walking distance from the stadium. I'd started putting together my outfit, ordering sparkly dresses online, and returning the ones that didn't feel right. I'd even started a Pinterest board with friendship bracelet ideas, because trading bracelets had become this whole thing at Taylor's concerts. I called Madison the second I got the confirmation email from Ticketmaster. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Emma, you're literally the best cousin in the entire world," she said, her voice cracking with excitement. "I cannot believe we're actually going to see Taylor Swift together. This is going to be the best night of our lives." We started planning immediately. Madison said she'd drive over from LA the day before the concert. We'd get ready together at the hotel, take a million photos, maybe grab dinner somewhere nice before the show. She suggested we coordinate our outfits, maybe both wear something from the Folklore era, since that was the album that had gotten us through the pandemic. "I'll Venmo you for my ticket right now," Madison said. "Don't worry about it yet," I told her. "Just get it to me whenever. We're family." That was my first mistake. Over the next few weeks, Madison and I texted constantly. About the concert. She'd send me TikToks of other people's Eras Tour experiences, videos of the surprise songs Taylor had been playing, photos of outfits she was considering. We made a whole shared playlist of songs we hoped Taylor would perform. Madison even started learning the choreography to 22 from YouTube videos, saying we had to be prepared to dance along. But every time I brought up the money for her ticket, Madison had some excuse. First, it was that she'd just paid rent and her account was low. Then it was car trouble. Apparently her Jeep needed new brakes. Then it was a work drama. Something about her startup cutting salaries temporarily while they looked for new investors. "Promise I'll have it to you by next month," she kept saying. "Things are just tight right now, but they'll get better soon." I wasn't worried. Madison had always been good with money. Much better than me, actually. In college, while I was blowing my work-study paychecks on Target runs and coffee dates, she was investing in stocks and talking about retirement accounts. She'd graduated with a business degree and landed a job at this tech startup that seemed to be doing really well. Her Instagram was full of photos from company retreats in Napa and team dinners at expensive LA restaurants. Plus, we were family. Madison wasn't going to screw me over. The thought never even crossed my mind. May turned into June. The concert was getting closer, and Madison still hadn't paid me back, but she was more excited than ever. She'd bought a vintage band t-shirt on Depop that she was planning to wear, and she'd made us both friendship bracelets with lyrics from All Too Well beaded in tiny letters. She'd even booked the day off work after the concert, saying she wanted to recover properly from what she was calling the best night of our lives. It was during the first week of July, just 10 days before the concert, that I started getting weird feelings about the whole thing. Madison had been posting less on social media, which wasn't like her. When I'd text her about concert plans, her responses were shorter, less enthusiastic. She said she was just busy with work, some big project that was taking all her time. Then, on July 8th, exactly 1 week before the show, I got a call from my mom. "Emma, honey, I need to ask you something," she said, and her voice had that careful tone that meant she was about to deliver bad news. Madison's mom just called me. Apparently, Madison told her that the Taylor Swift concert got canceled. She said something about the venue having problems and all the shows being postponed. My stomach dropped. "Mom, the concert didn't get canceled. I just checked Ticketmaster yesterday. Everything's still on schedule." There was a long pause. "Are you sure?" Because Madison seemed pretty upset about it. She told her mom she was really disappointed, but that she'd gotten refunded for both tickets. Both tickets. Madison had told her mom she'd gotten refunded for both tickets. I hung up with my mom and immediately opened the Ticketmaster app. My tickets were still there, still valid, still showing July 15th at 7:30 p.m. I took a screenshot and texted it to Madison with a message. "Hey, just wanted to confirm. The concert is definitely still happening. Can't wait." She didn't respond for 3 hours. When she finally did, it was just, "Yeah, so excited. Sorry, crazy day at work." Something was wrong. I could feel it in my chest, this growing knot of anxiety that I couldn't shake. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Madison's behavior over the past few weeks, the way she'd been avoiding the topic of money, her weird responses to my texts. And why would she tell her mom the concert was canceled? The next morning, I decided to call Ticketmaster directly. Maybe there was some issue with my account that I wasn't seeing, something that would explain Madison's confusion. I waited on hold for 27 minutes before getting through to a customer service representative named David. "I just wanted to confirm that my tickets for the Taylor Swift show on July 15th are still valid," I said, giving him my confirmation number. "Let me check that for you," David said. I heard typing in the background. That's interesting. It looks like those tickets were actually transferred out of your account on June 23rd. My blood went cold. "What do you mean transferred?" Someone with access to your account transferred both tickets to a different Ticketmaster account on June 23rd at 11:42 a.m. Do you remember authorizing a transfer? I absolutely did not remember authorizing a transfer. I will never forget something like that. Who were they transferred to? I can't give you the specific account information, but I can tell you the email address associated with the receiving account. It's madison.claire.torres@gmail.com. Madison's email address. My cousin had transferred my tickets to herself without telling me. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto my desk. My coworkers looked over, but I couldn't even acknowledge them. Madison had stolen my tickets. Actually, I stole them, used my own Ticketmaster account to transfer them to herself without my permission. I grabbed my phone and immediately tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail again. The third time, it didn't even ring, just went directly to that automated message. She'd turned off her phone. My fingers were shaking as I opened my laptop and logged into my Ticketmaster account. Sure enough, my purchase history showed the transfer on June 23rd. 2 tickets, Section 104, Row 12. Transferred to madison.claire.torres@gmail.com. There was even a note in the transfer log. Gift from Emma to Madison. Enjoy the show. She'd forged a gift message, made it look like I'd willingly given her both tickets as some kind of present. The date was June 23rd, right in the middle of when I'd been asking her about paying me back, when she kept making excuses about car repairs and work problems. I called David back at Ticketmaster, getting bounced through their phone system for another 20 minutes before reaching him again. I need to report stolen tickets, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Someone accessed my account and transferred my tickets without permission. I understand your frustration, David said in that practiced customer service tone. Unfortunately, once tickets are transferred between accounts, we can't reverse the transaction unless both parties agree to it, or unless there's evidence of fraud. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. This is fraud, I said. I never authorized this transfer. She used my account information to steal my tickets. Do you know the person who received the tickets? She's my cousin, but I never gave her permission to take them. She must have gotten into my account somehow. There was a pause. Since you know the person and there's a family relationship, this becomes more of a civil matter than a criminal one from our perspective. You'd need to work it out between yourselves, or potentially involve law enforcement if you believe a crime was committed. Law enforcement. The idea of calling the police on Madison felt surreal. This was the girl who'd braided my hair for school dances, who'd helped me cheat on my driving test by letting me practice with her car, who'd held my hair back when I got food poisoning during spring break sophomore year. But she'd also stolen $1,700 from me. I hung up with Ticketmaster and immediately started going through my accounts, checking everything. My banking information was secure. No unauthorized transactions there. My email didn't show any suspicious login attempts. But when I checked my Ticketmaster account settings, I found the problem. Madison was listed as a trusted contact on my account. I'd added her months ago when I was having trouble with the app during a pre-sale, and she'd helped me troubleshoot from her laptop while we were on FaceTime. I'd completely forgotten about it. That trusted contact status had given her the ability to transfer tickets without additional verification. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Hey Em, sorry for the radio silence. Work has been absolutely insane. Can we catch up this weekend? She was acting like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just stolen nearly $2,000 worth of concert tickets from me. I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. We need to talk. Now. Call me. 20 minutes passed. Nothing. I tried calling her again, still straight to voicemail. I was furious, but I was also hurt in a way that felt deeper than anger. This wasn't just about money or concert tickets. This was about trust. about family, about the relationship I'd valued most in my life. Madison knew how much this concert meant to me. She knew I'd spent months saving up, planning everything down to the smallest detail. And she'd taken it all away with a few clicks on a computer. That evening, I drove to my parents' house in Scottsdale. I needed to tell someone what was happening, and I wasn't ready to handle this alone. My mom was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked in, and she took one look at my face and knew something was seriously wrong. "What happened, sweetheart?" I told her everything. The phone call with Ticketmaster, the discovered transfer, Madison's lies about the concert being canceled. My mom listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with every detail. "I can't believe she would do something like this," my mom said when I finished. "Madison's always been such a sweet girl. There has to be some explanation." "What explanation could there possibly be for stealing my tickets? Maybe she was planning to surprise you somehow? Or maybe there's some financial trouble she's embarrassed to tell you about?" I wanted to believe that. I really did. But nothing about Madison's behavior suggested she was planning a surprise or dealing with shame about money problems. She'd been posting on Instagram just days ago about going to some trendy restaurant in West Hollywood. Her LinkedIn showed her startup had just closed another round of funding. If she was having financial problems, she was hiding them really well. My dad suggested I give Madison one more chance to explain before involving anyone else. "Family relationships are complicated," he said. "Sometimes people make bad decisions when they're desperate, but that doesn't mean they're bad people." So I tried again. I sent Madison a long text message explaining exactly what I'd discovered, giving her an opportunity to come clean and work out some kind of solution. I told her I wasn't trying to get her in trouble. I just wanted my tickets back or fair compensation for them. Her response came 3 hours later. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. I don't know what you're talking about. With transferring tickets. Maybe there was a glitch in the Ticketmaster system? I'd be happy to help you figure this out." She was gaslighting me, actually trying to convince me that I was confused about what had happened, that maybe it was some kind of technical error. Like Ticketmaster's system had randomly decided to move my tickets to her account and forge a gift message. That's when I realized this wasn't a moment of desperation or poor judgment. This was calculated. Madison had planned this for weeks, maybe months. She'd stayed on my Ticketmaster account as a trusted contact specifically so she could take the tickets when the time was right. She'd been lying to me about paying me back while she was planning to steal from me the entire time. The next morning, I called the Phoenix Police Department's non-emergency line. The officer who answered transferred me to someone in their fraud division, Detective Lisa Hoffman. I explained the situation as clearly as I could. The stolen tickets, the forged transfer, the family relationship. "The dollar amount puts this in felony territory," Detective Hoffman said. "But prosecution can be tricky in cases involving family members, especially when the suspect had some level of authorized access to begin with. Do you have documentation showing she wasn't supposed to transfer the tickets?" I did. I had screenshots of our text conversations where Madison kept promising to pay me back for her ticket, making it clear that the tickets belonged to me and she was just borrowing her seat. I had the Venmo requests I'd sent her that she'd ignored. I had her mother's statement to my mom about the concert being canceled, proving Madison knew she'd done something wrong. "That's good," Detective Hoffman said. "I'd like you to come in and file a formal report. Bring all your documentation, the Ticketmaster records, the text messages, everything. We'll also need you to make one more attempt to contact the suspect and ask for the tickets back, but this time we'll need you to document her response." The suspect. Madison had become a suspect. I made the appointment for the next day and spent the evening organizing all my evidence. Screenshots of text conversations, printouts of Ticketmaster records, copies of my bank statements showing the original purchase. It felt like building a case against my own sister. But Madison had made her choice when she decided to steal from me. Now I was making mine. The police station was busier than I'd expected. Detective Hoffman was a woman in her 40s with short, gray hair and kind eyes, but she was completely professional as she walked me through the report process. She asked detailed questions about my relationship with Madison, the timeline of events, and the evidence I'd collected. Before we proceed, "I want to make sure you understand the potential consequences," Detective Hoffman said. "If we pursue charges and your cousin is convicted, she could face significant fines and possibly jail time. Grand theft is a serious felony in Arizona. Are you prepared for that possibility?" I thought about 12-year-old Madison teaching me how to straighten my hair with her mom's flat iron. I thought about 18-year-old Madison driving down to Phoenix to help me move out of a terrible apartment situation. I thought about 22-year-old Madison celebrating with me when I got my first real job. Then I thought about present-day Madison, who'd stolen $1,700 from me and then lied to my face about it. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." Detective Hoffman handed me a script she'd prepared, specific language I needed to use when contacting Madison to make one final request for the tickets back. Everything had to be documented properly for the case to hold up in court. "You need to be very clear that you want the tickets returned or equivalent compensation," she explained. "Don't accuse her of stealing or use emotional language. Just state the facts and make your request. If she admits to taking them or refuses to return them, that strengthens our case significantly." I drove home with the police report number written on a sticky note in my purse, feeling like I was living in someone else's life. 3 days ago, my biggest concern had been what shoes to wear to the concert. Now I was building a criminal case against my cousin. That evening, I called Madison using the number Detective Hoffman had given me, a recorded line that would capture our entire conversation for evidence. My hands were shaking as I dialed. Madison answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful like nothing had changed between us. "Emma! Finally! I've been so worried about you. You seemed really stressed in your texts yesterday." The casual tone made my stomach turn. She was still acting like the victim here, like I was the one creating drama over nothing. "Madison, I need you to listen to me carefully," I said, reading from Detective Hoffman's script. "My Ticketmaster account shows that 2 Taylor Swift concert tickets were transferred to your account on June 23rd without my authorization. I need those tickets returned to my account immediately, or I need you to compensate me for their full value of $1,694. There was a long pause. When Madison spoke again, her voice was different, colder, more guarded. "Emma, I honestly don't know what you're talking about. I never took any tickets from your account. Maybe you should call Ticketmaster and ask them to look into it. Sometimes their system has glitches." "Madison, the tickets were transferred to madison.claire.torres@gmail.com. That's your email address." "That's really weird. Maybe someone hacked my account? Or maybe there's another Madison Torres with a similar email. This is all very confusing." She was lying so smoothly, so convincingly, that for a split second I almost doubted myself. But I had all the evidence. I knew exactly what had happened. "I'm giving you 24 hours to return the tickets or provide compensation," I continued, still following the script. "If you don't respond, I'll have no choice but to pursue other options." "Other options? Emma, what are you talking about? You're really starting to scare me. This doesn't sound like you at all." After I hung up, I sat in my car in the police station parking lot for 20 minutes, crying harder than I had in years. It wasn't just about the money anymore, or even the concert. It was the realization that someone I'd trusted completely, someone I'd considered family, was capable of looking me in the eye and lying without any apparent guilt or remorse. 24. Hours passed. Madison didn't call, didn't text, didn't respond in any way. But her Instagram story showed her at a Pilates class in Beverly Hills, smiling and laughing with friends like she didn't have a care in the world. I returned to Detective Hoffman's office with the recorded phone call and a formal statement of non-response. She listened to the audio with a neutral expression, taking notes on a legal pad. She's sticking to her story about not knowing anything, Detective Hoffman said. But the evidence is pretty clear. We have the Ticketmaster records, we have your documentation of ownership, and we have her refusal to cooperate. I think we have enough to move forward. What happens next? I'll submit the case to the prosecutor's office. If they decide to pursue charges, a warrant will be issued for your cousin's arrest. Since she lives in California, we'll have to coordinate with LAPD for the actual arrest, but the charges will be filed here in Arizona. The words felt surreal. Warrant, arrest, prosecutor. This was really happening. How long does that usually take? Could be anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on the prosecutor's caseload and whether your cousin has any prior criminal history. I drove home feeling emotionally exhausted. Part of me had hoped Madison would come clean during our recorded phone call, that maybe there was still some explanation that would make sense of everything. But her continued lies had eliminated any possibility of working this out within the family. The concert was now just 4 days away. I had to cancel my hotel reservation, return the dress I'd bought, and watch from my couch as other people posted photos from the Phoenix show I should have been attending. The disappointment was crushing, but it was nothing compared to the betrayal. My mom called that night with news that made everything even worse. I spoke with Madison's mother today, she said carefully. Apparently, Madison told her she'd bought Taylor Swift tickets for herself and a friend, and they're driving to Phoenix for the concert this weekend. She's going to my concert. She's actually going to sit in my seat and watch the show I paid for. Her mother had no idea about any of this, Emma. When I explained what happened, she was horrified. She said she'd talked to Madison, but what? But Madison's 25 years old. There's not much her mother can do if she won't listen. That weekend was torture. I deleted Instagram and TikTok from my phone because I couldn't handle seeing concert posts, but I still found myself checking Madison's profiles obsessively on my laptop. Sure enough, her story on Saturday night showed her getting ready for something, wearing the vintage band t-shirt she'd mentioned months ago. On Sunday, there were photos from inside the stadium, distant shots of the stage that could have been taken from anywhere, but I recognized the angle. Section 104. My section. She was sitting in my seats, watching my concert, probably having the time of her life while I sat at home eating ice cream and feeling sorry for myself. But Madison made a crucial mistake that night. In one of her Instagram stories, she posted a video of herself singing along to All Too Well, and in the background, you could clearly see the row and section numbers printed on the seats beside her. Row 12, Section 104. The exact seats I'd purchased. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Detective Hoffman immediately. 3 weeks later, I got a call that changed everything. It wasn't Detective Hoffman. It was someone from Ticketmaster's fraud investigation department, a man named Kevin Rodriguez. Ms. Williams, we've been conducting our own internal investigation into your case, and we've discovered some additional information that might be relevant to your police report. Ticketmaster had their own fraud division. I had no idea. Your cousin's account shows some unusual activity over the past 6 months, Kevin explained. She's been involved in multiple ticket transfers and resales that follow a concerning pattern. We think she may have done this to other people. My heart started racing. What kind of pattern? She gains access to other users' accounts through various means, sometimes as a trusted contact like yours, sometimes through shared passwords, sometimes through social engineering. Then she transfers high-value tickets to her own account and resells them on secondary markets. She's been doing this to other people? We've identified at least 4 other victims in the past 8 months. Concert tickets, sporting events, Broadway shows. The total value is over $12,000. Madison wasn't just a cousin who'd made a bad decision. She was running a systematic ticket theft operation. We've been working with law enforcement agencies in multiple states, Kevin continued. Your case was actually the missing piece we needed to establish a clear pattern of fraud. We have evidence that your cousin sold your Taylor Swift tickets on StubHub for $2,400 the day after the concert. $2,400. She'd not only stolen my tickets, but had made a profit of over $700 by reselling them at inflated prices. We'd like you to participate in a coordinated investigation involving Ticketmaster, the Arizona Attorney General's office, and federal authorities. This has become much bigger than a single case of ticket theft. I agreed immediately. Madison had hurt other people the same way she'd hurt me, and they deserved justice too. 2 days later, Detective Hoffman called with an update that made my pulse quicken. The prosecutor has approved the charges, she said. We have a warrant for Madison Torres's arrest on charges of grand theft, computer fraud, and identity theft. LAPD will be executing the warrant tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, after months of investigation, documentation, and waiting, Madison was finally going to face consequences for what she'd done. Will I need to testify? Most likely, yes, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, justice is finally moving forward. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen, staring at the wall where I'd hung a photo of Madison and me from my college graduation. We were both smiling, arms around each other, looking like the picture of family loyalty and love. That photo was coming down tonight. The call came at 7:23 a.m. on a Thursday. Detective Hoffman's voice was professional, but I could hear a hint of satisfaction underneath. She's in custody, she said simply. LAPD executed the warrant at Madison's apartment this morning. She's been arrested and is currently being processed. I was getting ready for work when the phone rang, halfway through applying mascara in my bathroom mirror. The news hit me like a physical blow, not because I wasn't expecting it, but because hearing those words made everything suddenly, irrevocably real. Madison was in jail. My cousin, who used to braid friendship bracelets with me during family vacations, was sitting in a cell somewhere in Los Angeles. What happens now? I asked, sinking onto the edge of my bathtub. She'll have an initial hearing today in LA, where they'll set bail and schedule her extradition hearing. Since the charges were filed in Arizona, she'll need to be transferred here to face trial. That process can take anywhere from a few days to several weeks, depending on whether she fights the extradition. After hanging up, I called in sick to work. I couldn't imagine sitting in meetings and pretending to care about marketing campaigns when my entire family was about to implode. The news spread through our family faster than I'd anticipated. By noon, my phone was buzzing nonstop with calls and texts. My Aunt Carol, Madison's mother, had the hardest conversation. Emma, please tell me this is some kind of mistake, she said, her voice thick with tears. Madison called me from jail this morning crying, saying she's been wrongfully arrested. She swears she didn't do anything wrong. Even now, even after being arrested with overwhelming evidence against her, Madison was still lying, still playing the victim. Aunt Carol, I'm sorry, but it's not a mistake. The police have documented evidence of everything she did, not just to me, but to other people too. Other people? What are you talking about? I realized Madison's mother had no idea about the scope of her daughter's crimes. She thought this was just a family disagreement that had gotten out of hand, not a systematic fraud operation that had victimized multiple people. I explained everything: the Ticketmaster investigation, the other victims, the $12,000 in stolen tickets, the pattern of deliberate fraud. With each detail, I could hear my aunt's breathing get more labored. This can't be real, she whispered. This isn't the daughter I raised. Madison's a good girl. She's always been responsible with money. She got good grades. She has a good job. I know. I thought I knew her too. The conversation ended with both of us crying. Aunt Carol hung up, saying she needed to call a lawyer, and I was left alone, in my apartment, emotionally drained before 2 p.m. That evening brought more news. Kevin Rodriguez from Ticketmaster called with updates from their ongoing investigation. We executed search warrants on your cousin's digital accounts today, he said. What we found is pretty staggering. She had detailed spreadsheets tracking her ticket thefts, including purchase dates, resale values, and profit margins. She was treating this like a business. Spreadsheets? Complete records going back over a year. Different victim names, event details, sale prices on secondary markets. She was making serious money doing this. We estimate around $40,000 in total profits. $40,000. Madison had been systematically stealing from people for over a year, treating their trust and excitement like a commodity she could exploit for profit. There's something else, Kevin continued. We found evidence that she was planning to expand the operation. She had lists of upcoming high-demand events, research on ticket pricing trends, even notes about recruiting other people to help her gain access to more accounts. The Madison I thought I knew, responsible, ethical, family-oriented, had never existed. The real Madison was a calculating criminal who'd been using our family relationship as a cover for theft. 2 days after the arrest, I got a call I wasn't expecting. The number showed up as Los Angeles County Jail. Emma? It's me. Madison's voice sounded small and scared, nothing like the confident liar I'd spoken to during the recorded phone call weeks earlier. I only have a few minutes, she said quickly. They let me make one call and I needed to talk to you. I almost hung up, almost refused to give her the satisfaction of hearing my voice, but something in her tone made me listen. Emma, please, you have to believe me. This whole thing has been blown completely out of proportion. Yes, I transferred your tickets, but I was going to pay you back. I was going to surprise you by upgrading us to better seats. Even now, sitting in jail, she was still lying? Madison, the police found spreadsheets. You've been doing this to other people for over a year? You made $40,000 stealing tickets. That's not how it was. Those spreadsheets were just, I was keeping track of legitimate ticket sales. I bought tickets and resold them when I couldn't attend events. That's not illegal. Using other people's accounts is illegal. Taking tickets without permission is illegal. Emma, please. I'm your family. We've been like sisters our whole lives. Don't let them destroy our relationship over some stupid misunderstanding. The manipulation was breathtaking. Even facing serious criminal charges, Madison was still trying to gaslight me, still trying to reframe her deliberate theft as a misunderstanding that I was somehow responsible for escalating. Madison, you stole from me. You lied to my face about it. You stole from other innocent people. There's no misunderstanding here. If you just drop the charges, I can pay everyone back. I have money saved up. I can make this right. You should have made it right months ago when you first stole my tickets. The line went quiet for a long moment. When Madison spoke again, her voice had changed completely, colder, angrier. Fine. If this is how you want to handle family business, don't come crying to me when this all backfires on you. You think you're the hero here, but you're just a vindictive bitch who destroyed someone's life over concert tickets. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. The mask had finally slipped completely. The sweet, apologetic victim act was gone, replaced by the real Madison, someone who was furious at being caught, not remorseful about what she'd done. The next week brought a parade of legal developments. Madison hired a lawyer and initially fought the extradition, but when additional evidence emerged from the digital forensics, her attorney advised her to accept transfer to Arizona. The case was simply too strong to fight. Detective Hoffman kept me updated on each development. Madison was being charged with multiple felonies: grand theft, computer fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. The wire fraud charge was federal, added because she'd used electronic communications and crossed state lines while committing her crimes. Her lawyer reached out about a potential plea deal, Detective Hoffman told me during one of our check-ins. They want to know if you'd be open to a restitution agreement instead of pressing forward with a trial. What would that mean? She'd plead guilty to reduced charges, pay back all the money she stole from you and the other victims, and probably serve some jail time, though less than if she were convicted at trial. I thought about it for several days. A plea deal would mean getting my money back faster, and it would spare me from having to testify in a lengthy trial. But it would also mean Madison got off easier than she deserved. The deciding factor came when Kevin Rodriguez put me in touch with two of Madison's other victims. Sarah Chen, a nurse from San Diego, had lost $900 worth of Hamilton tickets that she'd been saving for months to afford. Michael Stevens, a teacher from Denver, had his $600 basketball playoffs tickets stolen just days before the game. Both of them had stories eerily similar to mine. Madison had gained access to their accounts through various pretenses, transferred their tickets, and then lied about it when confronted. Both had suffered not just financial loss, but the deeper pain of missing events they'd been looking forward to for months. "I just want her to face real consequences," Sarah told me during a three-way phone call. "Not just paying us back, but actually being held accountable for what she did to people. She needs to understand that she can't just treat people like ATMs," Michael added. "Some of us scraped together money we didn't really have for these tickets. We all agreed to reject any plea deal that didn't include significant jail time. Madison had made the choice to hurt multiple people repeatedly. Now she needed to face the full consequences of that choice." 2 months later, Madison was transferred to a jail in Phoenix to await trial. The local news picked up the story. "California woman arrested in multi-state ticket fraud scheme." And suddenly, my private family nightmare was public knowledge. My phone rang constantly with reporters asking for comments. I declined all interviews, but seeing Madison's booking photo on the evening news felt surreal. She looked older, harder, nothing like the girl I'd grown up with. The trial was scheduled for January, still 4 months away. As I marked the date on my calendar, I realized this ordeal was far from over. But for the first time since discovering the theft, I felt like justice was actually possible. The months leading up to trial were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. What had started as a personal betrayal had evolved into a complex legal case, involving multiple jurisdictions, federal agencies, and a growing list of victims that seemed to expand every week. In October, I received a call from Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Walsh, the prosecutor assigned to Madison's case. Her voice was confident and professional, with the tone of someone who'd handled hundreds of fraud cases. "Emma, I wanted to meet with you in person to discuss your testimony and go over what to expect during the trial," she said. "We're also going to need you to review some additional evidence that's emerged since the arrest." The additional evidence was staggering. Madison's digital footprint had revealed a criminal operation far more sophisticated than anyone had initially realized. She'd been using fake identities to create multiple Ticketmaster accounts, collaborating with accomplices to gain access to more victims' accounts, and even running a private Discord server where she shared tips with other scammers about exploiting ticket platforms. "Your cousin was essentially running a ticket fraud academy," Adia Walsh explained during our meeting in her downtown Phoenix office. "We found chat logs where she was teaching other people her methods, taking a percentage of their profits in exchange for training." The conference room walls were covered with printouts of evidence, screenshots of Discord conversations, bank records showing money transfers, spreadsheets detailing hundreds of fraudulent transactions. Seeing it all laid out like that made my stomach turn. How many total victims are we talking about now? 43 confirmed victims across 7 states. The total stolen amount is approaching $85,000. $85,000. Madison had built a criminal empire stealing people's excitement, their special moments, their hard-earned money. And it had all started with the trust I'd given her as family. The defense attorney has indicated they're going to argue that Madison was struggling with gambling addiction and mental health issues, Ada Walsh continued. They'll try to paint her as a victim herself, someone who got in over her head and made poor decisions due to illness rather than criminal intent. I felt a flash of anger. She kept detailed spreadsheets. She was teaching other people how to Steal. That's not mental illness, that's a business plan. I agree completely. That's why we need your testimony to be rock solid. The jury needs to understand that this wasn't impulsive behavior. It was calculated, deliberate fraud that hurt real people. Over the next 2 months, I spent countless hours with Ada Walsh and her team, preparing for trial. They walked me through every detail of my testimony, helped me organize my evidence, and prepared me for the kind of aggressive cross-examination Madison's defense attorney would likely attempt. The hardest part was reliving the emotional impact over and over again. Every time I had to explain how excited I'd been for the concert, how much money I'd saved, how betrayed I felt when I discovered the theft. The wound felt fresh again. The defense is going to try to minimize this, Ada Walsh warned me. They'll say it was just family drama, that you're overreacting to what was essentially a loan between relatives. You need to be clear that you never gave permission for those tickets to be taken. During one of our prep sessions, I met 2 more of Madison's victims who would also be testifying. Janet Morrison was a grandmother from Tucson who'd had her grandson's birthday present, $800 worth of Diamondbacks playoff tickets, stolen from her account. Robert Kim was a veteran from Flagstaff who'd lost tickets to a military appreciation event that had special meaning for him. Hearing their stories reinforced why I'd made the right choice in rejecting any plea deals. These weren't just financial crimes. Madison had stolen irreplaceable experiences from people who'd saved and planned and dreamed about these events. The week before trial, I got another unexpected call from Los Angeles County Jail. This time, it wasn't Madison, it was her mother. "Emma, I need to talk to you," Aunt Carol said, her voice hoarse like she'd been crying for days. "I've been trying to get Madison to take a plea deal, to accept responsibility for what she's done. But she won't listen to me. What does she want to do?" "She wants to fight the charges. She's convinced her lawyer that she can win if she goes to trial. She thinks the jury will sympathize with her, that she can explain everything away." Even facing overwhelming evidence and 43 victims, Madison still believed she could manipulate her way out of consequences. The arrogance was breathtaking. "She keeps saying you're just doing this for revenge," Aunt Carol continued. "She says if you really cared about family, you'd convince the other victims to drop their charges too." Aunt Carol, she stole from dozens of people. She ran a criminal organization. This isn't about revenge, it's about justice. I know that now. When they showed me all the evidence, "Emma, I didn't raise her to be this person. I don't even recognize my own daughter anymore." The pain in my aunt's voice was heartbreaking. She was losing her daughter twice, once to the criminal justice system and once to the realization of who Madison really was. "Has she shown any remorse at all?" I asked. "No. That's what scares me the most. She's angry at everyone except herself. She's angry at you for reporting her, angry at the police for arresting her, angry at her lawyer for not getting the charges dismissed. But she's never once said she's sorry for what she did to people." Trial began on a cold Monday morning in January. The courthouse was busier than I'd expected, with reporters from several news outlets covering the case. The story had gained regional attention as an example of how online fraud was evolving and becoming more sophisticated. Madison looked different when she walked into the courtroom. She'd lost weight, her hair was shorter and less styled than usual, and she wore a conservative navy blue suit that made her look younger and more vulnerable. Her defense attorney had clearly coached her on appearance. When she saw me sitting in the gallery, our eyes met for just a moment. I'd wondered how I'd feel seeing her again after all these months, but mostly I felt nothing. The person sitting at the defendant's table was a stranger who happened to share DNA with me. The opening statements laid out 2 completely different versions of reality. Ada Walsh presented Madison as a calculating criminal who had systematically exploited people's trust for profit. The defense attorney, David Chen, painted her as a young woman struggling with mental health and addiction issues, who had made some poor decisions, but wasn't the mastermind the prosecution claimed. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Chen said during his opening, "what we have here is a family dispute that got out of hand. Madison Torres made some mistakes, yes, but the prosecution wants you to believe that a 25-year-old girl with no prior criminal record was running some kind of criminal enterprise. The reality is much simpler. Madison was struggling. She made some bad choices, and now her own family is trying to destroy her life over what amounts to a misunderstanding." I had to grip my hands together to keep from reacting. Even now, even in court, Madison's team was trying to gaslight everyone about what had really happened. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Ada Walsh called witness after witness, Ticketmaster investigators, digital forensics experts, banking specialists, and victims. Each piece of testimony built on the others, creating an overwhelming picture of deliberate, systematic fraud. Kevin Rodriguez from Ticketmaster was particularly effective. He walked the jury through Madison's digital activity step by step, showing how she'd researched high-value events, targeted specific accounts, and executed transfers with precision timing. This wasn't impulsive behavior, he testified. The defendant kept detailed records, planned her activities weeks in advance, and continuously refined her methods to avoid detection. This was a sophisticated criminal operation. When Detective Hoffman took the stand, she played the recorded phone call where Madison had lied about taking my tickets. Hearing Madison's voice in that courtroom, so smoothly denying everything while the evidence of her guilt sat on the prosecutor's table, was chilling. But the most powerful testimony came from the victims themselves. One by one, we took the stand and told our stories. Sarah Chen, the nurse who'd lost her Hamilton tickets, broke down crying as she described working overtime shifts for months to afford the show. Robert Kim, the veteran, spoke quietly but firmly about what those military appreciation tickets had meant to him. When my turn came, I was more nervous than I'd expected. The courtroom felt enormous, and Madison's eyes never left me as I walked to the witness stand. But once I started talking, the words came easily. I told the truth about our relationship, about the concert planning, about the discovery of the theft, about the lies and manipulation that followed. During cross-examination, Chen tried to make me seem vindictive and money-hungry, suggesting I'd blown a family disagreement out of proportion for financial gain. But Ada Walsh had prepared me well. I stuck to the facts, kept my emotions in check, and made it clear that this was about justice, not revenge. The trial lasted 8 days. When closing arguments finished and the jury retired to deliberate, I felt emotionally drained, but oddly hopeful. The evidence was overwhelming. Madison's guilt was undeniable. Now we just had to wait for 12 strangers to confirm what everyone in that courtroom already knew, that Madison Torres was a criminal who deserved to face consequences for the pain she'd caused. The jury deliberated for 6 hours across 2 days. 6 hours to decide whether Madison Torres was a criminal mastermind or a troubled young woman who'd made some poor choices. To me, those 6 hours felt like 6 years. I spent the first day pacing around downtown, Phoenix, unable to focus on anything else. Ada Walsh had warned me that jury deliberations were unpredictable. Even with overwhelming evidence, you never knew how 12 strangers would interpret the facts. Criminal trials aren't just about evidence, she'd explained. They're about storytelling. The defense only needs to create reasonable doubt in one juror's mind to hang the jury or get an acquittal. That possibility terrified me. After everything, the months of investigation, the emotional trauma, the family relationships destroyed, Madison could still walk free if the jury bought her mental health defense. On the second morning of deliberations, my phone rang at 10:47 a.m. It was Ada Walsh. "The jury has reached a verdict. Can you be here in 30 minutes?" My hands were shaking so badly I could barely drive to the courthouse. The media presence had grown since the trial began. Apparently, the case had become a cautionary tale about online fraud and family betrayal that resonated with a lot of people. Inside the courtroom, Madison sat rigidly at the defendant's table, her lawyer whispering something in her ear. For the first time since the trial began, she looked genuinely scared. The confident mask she'd worn throughout the proceedings had finally slipped. Judge Patricia Hernandez called the court to order and asked the jury foreman to read the verdict. In the matter of the state of Arizona versus Madison Claire Torres, on the count of grand theft in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. My heart nearly stopped. Guilty. They'd believed us. On the count of computer fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of identity theft, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. Guilty on all counts. The jury had seen through Madison's defense completely. I looked over at Madison as the verdicts were read. Her face had gone completely pale, and she was gripping the edge of the defendant's table so hard her knuckles were white. This was the moment it became real for her. She was going to prison. Behind me, I heard quiet sobbing. It was Aunt Carol, who'd attended every day of the trial despite the pain of watching her daughter's crimes exposed in excruciating detail. My heart broke for her, even as I felt relief at the verdict. Judge Hernandez scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later and remanded Madison to custody pending the hearing. As the bailiff approached with handcuffs, Madison finally turned to look at me directly. Her expression wasn't angry anymore. It was pleading, desperate. "Emma, please," she mouthed silently. Even now, even after being convicted by a jury of her peers, she was still trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. I looked away. That chapter of my life was officially closed. Outside the courthouse, ADA Walsh held a brief press conference praising the jury's decision and warning the public about the evolving nature of online fraud. This case demonstrates that criminals are becoming increasingly sophisticated in their methods, she said to the assembled reporters. Madison Torres wasn't just stealing tickets. She was stealing experiences, memories, and special moments from hardworking people. The jury's verdict sends a clear message that these crimes will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Several of the other victims had attended the verdict reading, and we found ourselves clustered together afterward, sharing a mixture of relief and emotional exhaustion. Sarah Chen, the nurse who'd lost her Hamilton tickets, hugged me tightly. "Thank you for not taking a plea deal," she said. "Thank you for making sure she faced real consequences." The 6 weeks between conviction and sentencing passed quickly. During that time, I received dozens of messages from people who'd followed the case in the news. Fraud victims sharing their own stories, people who'd had similar experiences with family members, others who just wanted to express support for. Speaking up against someone I'd once trusted, one message particularly stood out. It was from a woman named Lisa Patterson in Seattle, who said she'd been scammed by someone using Madison's Discord server tips and methods. The ripple effects of Madison's criminal academy were apparently still being felt across the country. "Your courage to press charges probably prevented dozens of other people from being victimized," Lisa wrote. "This person learned from your cousin's techniques and stole $900 worth of tickets from me and my teenage daughter. Thank you for stopping the source." The sentencing hearing was less dramatic than the trial, but more emotionally charged. Judge Hernandez allowed victim impact statements, giving each of us the chance to address Madison directly about how her crimes had affected our lives. I'd spent weeks writing and rewriting my statement, trying to find the right words to capture not just the financial impact, but the deeper betrayal and pain she'd caused. "Your Honor," I began, looking directly at Madison as I spoke. "The defendant didn't just steal my concert tickets. She stole my trust, my sense of security, and my belief in family loyalty. She took something I'd worked months to afford and turned it into a source of profit for herself, with no regard for my feelings or our relationship." Madison kept her eyes down during most of my statement, But when I mentioned our childhood memories together, she looked up with tears in her eyes. For a split second, I saw a flash of the cousin I'd once known. I don't expect an apology, I continued, because I don't think Madison understands what she's done wrong. But I hope her sentence will give her time to reflect on the pain she's caused to dozens of innocent people who trusted her. Other victims spoke about missed anniversaries, ruined birthday surprises, and financial hardship caused by Madison's thefts. Robert Kim, the veteran, was particularly powerful in his statement. The defendant stole tickets to an event honoring military service members, he said quietly. She took something meant to celebrate sacrifice and turned it into personal profit. That shows a level of moral bankruptcy that goes beyond simple greed. When the victim statements concluded, Judge Hernandez asked Madison if she wanted to address the court before sentencing. Her lawyer had obviously prepared her for this moment. Madison stood slowly and turned to face us, the victim sitting in the gallery. "I want to apologize to everyone I hurt," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know saying I'm sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I realize what I did was wrong. I was dealing with personal problems and made terrible choices, but that's no excuse for hurting innocent people." It was the first time I'd heard Madison acknowledge wrongdoing since this whole nightmare began. But even then, something about it felt rehearsed, calculated to minimize her sentence rather than express genuine remorse. Judge Hernandez wasn't fooled either. "Ms. Torres, this court has reviewed extensive evidence showing that your crimes were not the result of poor impulse control or temporary personal problems," she said sternly. "You operated a sophisticated criminal enterprise that victimized dozens of people across multiple states. You kept detailed records, recruited accomplices, and continued your illegal activity even after family members confronted you about it." The judge sentenced Madison to 4 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, $87,340 total, plus court costs and fees. Additionally, Judge Hernandez continued, "You are permanently banned from creating or accessing any Ticketmaster accounts, and your internet activity will be monitored throughout your probation period." 4 years. It felt like justice, though no amount of prison time could undo the damage Madison had caused to our family relationships or give back the experiences she'd stolen from so many people. As the bailiff led Madison away in handcuffs, she looked back at me one more time. This time there was no pleading in her expression, just acknowledgement that this was really happening, that her choices had finally caught up with her. 6 months later, I received a check from the Arizona Attorney General's office, full restitution for my stolen tickets, plus interest. The money came from assets seized from Madison's bank accounts and cryptocurrency wallets they'd discovered during the investigation. I used the money to buy tickets to Taylor Swift's next tour when it was announced. Not the same seats, not the same show I'd originally planned to attend, but it felt symbolic somehow. Madison had stolen one experience from me, but she couldn't steal my future ones. The concert was everything I'd hoped it would be 2 years earlier. I went with my best friend Jessica from work, someone I knew I could trust completely. We sang every song, traded friendship bracelets with other fans, and stayed until the very last note of the encore. During All Too Well, I thought briefly about Madison, probably sitting in a prison cell somewhere, serving time for the choices she'd made. I felt sad for the cousin I'd once known, but no regret about the path that had led us here. She'd taught me that trust has to be earned and maintained, that family relationships don't excuse criminal behavior, and that sometimes the hardest thing you can do is hold the people you love accountable for their actions. As Taylor Swift sang the final lines of the song, I realized I'd learned something else too, that my own integrity and sense of justice were worth more than any relationship, built on lies and manipulation. The girl who'd once braided friendship bracelets with me was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. But I was still here, stronger and wiser, ready to build new relationships based on honesty and mutual respect. And for the first time in 2 years, that felt like enough. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.